Hi, everyone. I'm Randy Karraker, and welcome to SoundStory. And today we're going to hear about the life and times of Ted Tedesco. Ted, it's great to meet you and great to have you here in studio. Thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure.
Well, you have an illustrious past, and I want to start way back. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Belleville, Illinois. January of 1938. So that's how old I am. But went to a Catholic high school in Belleville. At that time, it was Cathedral High School, which then became Althoff. And we were the small school in Belleville, and the other school was Belleville Township, which this was before it broke into Belleville East and Belleville West, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Right.
And so we were the small school in town. They were the big school in town. And when it came to athletics, we were always, trying to make up for the difference.
Well, we'll get to that, but I want to go back to your younger days as an 8, 9, 10-year-old in Belleville. What was a typical day like when you weren't in school? Obviously, we all know what school is like, but during the summer months, what did you and your friends do?
Well, luckily we had a park real close to the house that we frequented an awful lot, and the park was set up was a recreation department, and they had games and horseshoes, and corkball, and softball, and the whole bit. And but at that time, my dad was a baseball fan, a real baseball fan, and back the Browns, St. Louis Browns, was his team. And we would, when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, we would listen to the Browns game on the radio, and he had cards made up, and we'd keep score.
Oh, wow.
And then the interesting thing is that later on, one of those guys signed me to the contract.
Oh, okay.
Which I'll get into later.
Yeah, but let's. So, did you sit at home, listen to the games on the radio, and keep score? Is that the way it worked?
Yeah.
And that must have been
all the Brown games.
Right. So that must have been such a great baseball education, because at a young age, you're learning about all the players. You're learning about the sport itself. You're learning why things happen on the field, right?
Exactly. And he was adamant about playing catch. So we'd go out and play catch at least 3 or 4 times a week. And eventually it became not just catch, it was pitching. you know? And he became the catcher and I was a pitcher. But at first it was just catch,
What was the level of organization like when you played ball as a youngster, Little League and things like that?
Well, there was a lot of that in Belleville. Yeah, they really had some good programs for youth baseball, from this age group to that age group to this age group. And I played when I was 9 years old. I started pitching. Yeah, in the Lions League in Belleville.
How old were you when you threw your first curveball?
12.
Okay. And did it come to you right away?
I wasn't supposed to, but I did.
And I'll bet the hitters that you faced were bewildered, the other 12-year-olds that you're facing, right?
Well, when I was 13, you're exactly right. I was 13, and one day we were playing a league game, and I walked the first guy, and then I struck out 21 guys in a row.
Oh, man.
With a curveball.
Right.
But they were all backing up when I threw them,
Did you play in high school?
Yeah, I played in high school. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a no-hitter in high school for Cathedral. We played at the old athletic field in Belleville. I don't know if you'd be familiar with that or not. It was a real nice field for high school. We had a really nice field. In fact, the Browns came over and would play exhibition games there occasionally.
Nice field.
Yeah, it was nice. I played in high school all 4 years.
And when you weren't pitching, what were you doing? Or did you only pitch?
I tried to play more, excuse me, in the outfield and that, but they wouldn't let me. They just wanted me to pitch. That's all.
When did you realize, Ted, that there were pro scouts that were interested in you? Do you remember that?
Well, I got a baseball scholarship to Illinois, and took that and played up there I was there 3 years, freshman, sophomore, and junior. And 2 of those years, the coach sent me to South Dakota in what was the Basin League at that time, which was for college prospects, so to speak, you know. And the 3rd year I was there 3 summers, 57, 58, and 59. And 59, I had a really good summer. And it was a type of league where you had a job. They paid you. But you had to work a job.
Job during the day, play.
Yeah, play at night, right? All the games were at night. And I had a real good summer and got scouted and got signed by Don Lenhart.
I know the name.
Footsie.
Right.
They called him.
Yeah.
Ex-Brown.
Yeah. And this was pre-draft, so for all of the people that are playing baseball, and there were a lot playing in this country, just to get signed was a pretty big deal.
It was, and I didn't get a lot of money. You know, got $1,500 to sign and $1,500 when I reported, which at that time was, for me, was a lot of money.
Yeah, pretty darn good money. And did you graduate from Illinois? I know you went to Wyoming also.
No, I signed before I graduated.
Okay.
Had a good sophomore and junior season at Illinois. Lee Eilbrock was the coach. I don't know if that name rings a bell with you or not. Yeah. And we had some interesting ball players. We had Ray Nitschke, the football player, was a pitcher, and he was on the staff, you know, when I was there. And Tom Haller was another guy that played for the Giants.
Right.
Yeah, and he was there as a catcher, and so there were some good ball players, you know, at that time at Illinois.
And how were your grades aside from the baseball part of it? How'd you do in the academic part of it?
Just so. Yeah, right. And I had an opportunity to sign. That's why I didn't go back.
So how did you meet Sarah Sue?
Good question. In Belleville, there was in my day, in the 50s, early 50s, there was a place called the Dutch Girl, which eventually became Fisher's Restaurant, which is pretty popular in Belleville.
Yes.
Was. It's no longer there. Excuse me. And we're there one night with the guys, and she walks in with her girlfriend. I'd never met her and didn't know who she was, and took a look, and I said, you know, I think I'm going to try and get a date with her. And the other guy said, well, I think I'm going to try and get a date with the other girl, her girlfriend. So we did, and I eventually moseyed over to her and got to talking to her, and went home that night and said, you know, I think this is the girl. I was let's see, that was 1959, so I was 21. And I said, I think this might be the girl. I'll find out. And so we dated for a while, and that was 64 years ago.
That's amazing. So you met her that night, and then when did it? Obviously, that night you had an idea, but then how quickly into the relationship did you realize, hey, this is the one?
About 3 months. Yeah.
Was there something that you remember, a moment that you recall, or was it you're just thinking and you say, okay, this is it?
Well, I'll tell you what, the guys and I took a Mardi Gras trip in February of that year. Met her in February, and I was leaving to go with Mardi Gras with these guys. And I got down to Mardi Gras, and I said, boy, I really miss. I dated her a little bit.
Right.
And I said, I really miss her. I think I might have found the right one.
Yeah, you got the bug. So you meet her, and then you're starting a baseball career basically at the exact same time, right?
Exact same time, yes. We got married, and we went to spring training. Was our honeymoon.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. And what was it like at that time? You know, your descendants, your kids, grandkids, great-grandkids are listening to this, and they might watch baseball now and see teams with 4 minor league teams and maybe have 100 minor leaguers in a system. What was it like for you to go down to spring training in a system like the Red Sox?
Red Sox took good care of all of their minor leaguers, really did. And when I got there, it was a little overwhelming with all these guys that evidently had ability, or they wouldn't be there, you know. And so you performed as best you could and gave it everything you had. Ted Williams was there. He had just retired, and they made him the minor league batting instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Bobby Dorr. Bobby Dorr was the other guy. They were both instructors, so got to see them hit. And in fact, Williams even sat in one time I was pitching in a spring training game at camp. And he decided he'd step in whenever he wanted to and take some swings, so he got to throw a few to him.
Did that get you nervous?
Oh, yeah. At the time, I didn't think a whole lot of it, but later on, not long after that, I said, hey, that was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Right. And do you remember how many, and I want to get to the competition level, how many minor league teams there were at that time?
Gosh, the Red Sox had at least 6 minor league teams at that time, yeah. I ended up going to Waterloo, Iowa, in the Midwest League. And they had teams in Carolinas, Texas. Their AAA team was Seattle before it was in the major. That was their AAA.
So if you got called up from AAA, you had to fly across the country to Boston.
True.
Man.
Yeah, at that time, yeah, yeah.
And how did your career go? How did your baseball career happen and unfold?
Well, it was kind of up and down. I had a great first year at Waterloo. I was 11-2. I was a starter, and then they made a reliever out of me because not big, as you can see, and I had a good curveball. And so I was 11-2, and then they moved me up to Allentown in the Eastern League, and I won 2 games there. So I was 13-2 the first year. So next spring training, they sent me to AAA Seattle for spring training, which was Johnny Pesky, who I'm sure you know
the pesky pole, yep.
Especially you would know that.
Yeah.
And had a good spring with him in Florida. Thought I was pretty going to make the team. And the Red Sox made their final cut from the parent team and sent down 2 guys by the name of Don Schwall and Dick Raditz. And that meant that Pesky had to keep these guys and get rid of somebody. And I was the last pitcher to go.
Oh.
And I figured, when I look back, that was my shot. If I could have maybe broke camp with them and went to Seattle AAA, who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Might have got lucky.
Yeah, but so much of it is being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, so much so. I tell these guys that all the time. Be in the right place at the right time. Pesky put his arm around me and said, son, you got a major league curveball, and when I get a chance to bring you up here, I'm going to do it. But that never happened.
So another thing that kept Ted Tedesco busy, in addition to getting married, having hopefully burgeoning baseball career, but you and Sarah Sue started a family pretty quickly too, didn't you?
We sure did, yes. Our oldest daughter was born in 1961. We got married in 60. And second daughter next year, 62. And then we had 3 boys after that. 64 and 66, and the guy sitting over there.
And that's the fellow Randy Tedesco.
Yeah, Randy. He's my youngest.
So as you try to traverse the baseball career, did you keep trying to play ball once the Seattle thing happened? Did you keep trying and pounding the rock anymore?
Well, I played 5 years. One year, though, was interrupted by a service call. I'd called in the service. My last year was 1964, and in the middle of the season, they sent me to Wellsville in the NYP League as a player coach, a pitching coach, basically. And I got the message on the wall that I was no longer considered maybe a prospect, but maybe a coaching prospect, And I thought, well, I just got my degree and in education, and I thought, I don't know if I really want to do this. So I ended up taking a teaching position in Belleville, in Fairview Heights. And the next 2 years, they sent me contracts as a pitching coach, that I could have signed, but I backed out. I figured, well, I'm raising a family, and that's so much travel, and and not a good family life. And so I had a teaching job, so I just stayed with that.
I would imagine that took a lot of self-awareness, though, to recognize, because we all love ball, and you spend your whole life thinking, okay, I want to be involved in baseball somehow. How difficult was that for you to turn those contracts down?
It was really difficult. The only thing that helped was I started teaching, and I really enjoyed teaching. I had a junior high, I had 7th grade language arts, good kids, all just thought they were old enough to do this, and they weren't. They all were 12 years old.
Right.
I tell you, 13. Good age group, but I really enjoyed teaching, and so I didn't miss it too much. In fact, my wife probably missed it more than I did, because she had really enjoyed the camaraderie with other wives, the whole bit. She enjoyed that a lot, and she probably missed it more than I did, because I could still play ball. See, I could still go out and
men's
pitch.
leagues, right?
Yeah,
sure.
Right.
Yeah. And then you move on, as we mentioned, to Grant Junior High. Tell us about your career there.
Well, it was short because I wasn't making a lot of money, even though I really enjoyed it. I wasn't making a lot of money, and I took a summer job. I had to take a summer job every year because, to make ends meet. And I took a summer job with the Neuter Corporation in St. Louis here, which I don't know if you might have heard of them or not. They were a metal fabricating company downtown. And took a summer job there. At the end of the summer, they offered me a permanent position, and it was for more money, and it was year-round, 12 months. And so I said, I probably ought to take this. It's maybe good for my career. So I did, and then I left teaching. So I only taught for 2 years, but I really, really did miss it.
What did you do for Neuter Corporation?
Started out in human resource personnel. Did a lot of interviewing and benefits programs. Ended up being their recruiting director. So I recruited both office personnel and shop personnel. They had it was a fabricating shop with a lot of welders. And so I did a lot of recruiting at the technical schools, in the area, Rankin and those places. And then I also recruited engineers. We'd go to Rolla and, places like that to recruit. It was an interesting job, and I really enjoyed it. And Neuter was a really good company to work for at that time. He can tell you that.
Yeah, I would imagine that was really because of the building boom going on at that time, too, that you guys were really busy all the time, and you needed more and more people.
True, yes.
So that kept you busy? That
kept us real busy.
Yeah.
Neuter was making tanks for, like, the brewing industry, Budweiser, they did a lot of those vats that they use for brewing, and a lot of field work, erecting tanks and that in the field. They were a big company. They at one time had 1,200 shop employees, which was pretty big at the time.
And you stayed there for a long time. What was your favorite part of working for them?
Oh, I liked the way they brought labor and management together with so many things, because they really felt that labor and management had to get along together to be successful. And it had all kinds of sports programs. They made me the baseball coach for the team, and just really took care of the employees and really had an understanding of what it took to have a happy employee.
And I would think that with your job in HR, you kind of have to be a liaison, because sometimes, especially when in a union shop, it can be pretty contentious, right? So you're kind of the liaison between management and the employees. Is that a correct read?
You're exactly right. I had to be a good go-between between labor and management. I had to take care of these shop guys when it counted, and also take care of the office people when it counted. You're right. It was you had to do both.
Yeah. And one thing about management people or employees, you have to be willing to tell people what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear, especially when it's the employer. Okay, you might not want to hear this, but here's what the situation is, right?
Very true.
Did you ever have to do that?
Especially when you had to let somebody go, you know what I mean? And we did a lot of that. We had to let people go, and besides hiring, you let them go. So yeah, I did have some some interesting things with that.
So your kids are growing up. You started at Neuter in '66, and so Renee, your youngest or your oldest, would have been 5 at that time. As you're going through that career at Neuter and coaching their baseball team, how much coaching of your kids did you do?
Well, I did a lot with my oldest son to begin with. He was born in '64. So he was like 3 years younger than Renee.
And that's Bobby.
And that's Bobby, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Robert, yeah. Which is my name, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Which not a lot of people really know. I was called Ted from Tedesco all my life. And not a lot of people.
Did your parents call you Ted?
No, when I was little, they called me Bob.
Okay.
Okay, but when I got to be about 5 or 6 or 7 years old, they started calling me Ted, and Teddy, and it stuck all the way through till now.
I'll bet there's people that are watching and listening to this that have no idea.
I went to school with people that didn't know my first name was Robert.
So now we know.
Yeah, but Ted is what I go by. But what were we talking?
Coaching kids.
Oh, coaching kids. I worked with him a lot. Tried to make a pitcher out of him, but he wasn't really that interested in doing it. He played, but this is the guy I should have worked with because he had the motivation to do it, but he came along 10 years later,
Right. The reason that I wanted to talk about this is because obviously your father was a motivation for you to be a ball player, right?
Yes.
Did you carry some of that into working with your own kids?
Somewhat, yeah. Not a great deal, but somewhat, yeah. My daughter Kim turned out to be a pretty good athlete. Well, in fact, both my girls, Renee and Kim, both now play golf, and they're athletic. These guys are all athletic. He played soccer and wrestled, and I have one that played soccer, and then my oldest son, did play baseball in high school. So I kind of coached them all a little bit, but not. I didn't push it on him.
Right. I want to go back to when you were a kid. Did your dad push you? I know you liked it, but you said your dad caught for you. Did he? What was the dynamic between you and your dad like?
My dad wanted me to be a major league pitcher for the St. Louis Browns. And that was evident to me after a certain amount of years. I didn't realize that, when I was playing catch and so forth. But later on, I thought, he really was trying to groom me to be a major league pitcher for the St. Louis Browns. And he was dedicated to me. I was an only child. That I might mention that.
Yeah. So when he would coach you, and he was obviously a guy that really devoted a lot of his time and his life to you.
He did.
What was it like when you got to pro ball? Even though it wasn't with the Browns organization, how did your dad react?
He was thrilled. he was thrilled. I got a picture of me signing, with Len Harden, and you can tell he's just like beaming, So he was very proud the fact that I was going to make an effort to make a career out of it, and I think he liked the Red Sox too.
Oh, good. And then what about your mom? Was your mom a baseball fan too, and was she part of the process?
My mom was the one behind the whole scene that. She kept score at the Little League games and all of that. She was an avid fan too. Yes.
So that must have been, especially as an only child, what a family thrill. Did they ever make it, whether you were pitching in Iowa or Seattle? Did they ever make it to see you pitch professionally?
Yes, my dad did when I was in the Midwest League because that was close enough. I was in Iowa and we were. Well, in fact, Decatur, Illinois, was in the league, and he made some trips there. So yeah, but my mom never got to see me play professionally. No.
Okay, and I know we've taken a step back here, but this is based upon you working with your kids. Why did you say you should have worked with Randy more?
Because I found out later on that he wanted to be a pitcher, and I didn't really realize that because he was a good wrestler. In high school, and he also played soccer, and he was a good soccer player. Then played basketball too, for that matter. But I didn't really know that he wanted to do that. Had I known, I would have really worked more with him because he had more of the size. He's the tallest one in our family, by the way, and he's proud of that.
You raised kids during a tumultuous time. We talk about how tumultuous right now is in our country, but the 60s and the early 70s were really tumultuous. Tell us about raising kids during that time where you've got presidents getting shot, you've got social leaders, social justice leaders getting shot, you've got the Vietnam War. What was it like for you to raise your family at that time?
Well, it wasn't that hard. I always tell people that I would probably raise 10 girls to one boy if I had my choice, because the girls seemed like they were much easier to raise than the boys. And the boys reached a certain age where they were a little active, more active than they should have been maybe, whereas the girls weren't. Spent a lot more money on the girls, though. So it was it wasn't a real hard time. We were a middle income family, and so we had what we needed. Nothing special. We got along. Yeah.
Good. And how were you? You mentioned that your grades were just okay, but you were playing ball. Did you have a kid or kids where you saw their grades and said, wow, that's my kid, because they were so smart and so successful in school?
I can't really say I did.
They were just all really smart.
They all did well, yes.
Was it important for you, having gone to the University of Illinois, when not a lot of people were going to college, was it important for you for your kids to advance their education in college?
Yeah, yes, it was, especially if they had the desire to do that and were motivated. Like for example, my daughter Renee, my oldest one, was. My other daughter Kim was not really motivated to go to college, but she ended up being a stay-at-home mom with 2 boys and raised a family and the whole bit. But my oldest son had the desire to become a chef. In fact, he's the executive chef on the Viking Mississippi cruise ship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the one that goes up and down the river here.
That's great.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the 3 boys because, like you mentioned, it's different raising boys and girls. You've got 3 boys within 7 years of each other, and Bob and Tim are within 2, and then Randy is 7 years younger than Bobby. But I'll start with this. A lot of energy. Did those guys ever get into it when they were kids, those boys?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah. Yeah. And their friends, they bring their friends over, and there'd be all kinds of things going on at the house. We were kind of because we had the 5 kids, we were kind of the center of a lot of parties and things. And so, there was a lot going on there with Bob and Tim and Randy.
I would imagine, though, especially with Tim being 5 years older than Randy, if somebody was ever giving Randy trouble, it's one thing for brothers to give somebody trouble, but if somebody else has given their brother trouble, they say, hey, don't mess around with my brother. Did that happen in your family?
Oh, yeah. He had some instances where Bob and Tim stuck up for him, sure. But there also were instances where they teased the heck out of him.
Right. So, from a career standpoint, you mentioned that you have a chef and a stay-at-home mom, and obviously somebody who's been involved in finance. How about your 2 youngest, Tim and Randy?
Yeah, Tim pursued an engineering career. And in fact, graduated from the University of Illinois. And he is currently in Florida, Bradenton, as a environmental engineer. And Randy is right now he's what'd you tell me, a regional building official in the local area. And he was originally in zoning for the village of Swansea over in Belleville.
Sure.
You're familiar with that.
I know it.
So that's what they did, and like I say, Bob is the chef on the Viking cruise ship on the Mississippi.
When Tim went to Illinois. Do you have enough of an allegiance to Illinois that kind of touched your heartstrings?
Not so much, because I'll tell you why, which I haven't mentioned. When I did decide to go back to school, excuse me, to get a degree, there's a little story involved there, but I don't know if I got time.
We got time. Let's hear it.
We do?
Yes.
Well, when I left Illinois to sign a contract, I didn't have my degree, and in November of 1961, I got called into the service during the Berlin crisis. Ended up going to Fort Lewis, Washington, with a whole bunch of baseball players that were called in like I was, pulled out of control units in various cities like St. Louis. We got out there, and lo and behold, we had baseball people galore. Had people like Tony Kubek and Darren Johnson. You can probably.
Yep.
Those are two names. Well, I ended up with a team of 8 position players that all had major league experience. And we had a pitching staff that all played minor league ball for somebody. So we had a pretty good ball club. Nobody to coach it. So Kubek took over coaching the team, to start with. And eventually they found the baseball coach from the University of Wyoming was out there as a reserve captain. And they talked him into coaching the team. Well, he was thrilled to be coaching, these guys as opposed to college people. So when we got out, I said, I haven't got my degree. And he says, well, why don't you transfer your credits out here to Wyoming? You can help me with the baseball team, and I'll help you get through. And I was married, of course, with kids. And he says, I'll get you through and get you that degree. And I said, I think I'm going to do that. So lo and behold, we packed up everything we had in Belleville when I got home, and we headed for Laramie, Wyoming, and had no idea where Laramie, Wyoming was. But we had married student housing set up, and so I spent a year and a half there getting my degree. And that's where I graduated from.
And coaching there too?
And coaching, yeah. Yeah.
So were you the pitching coach at Wyoming?
Right.
I would think at that time, that must have been a tough place to recruit to, was it?
Yes.
Couldn't find many baseball players to come to Laramie, Wyoming.
Winters were terrible. The worst. But we were indoors, of course.
Yeah,
winter,
right.
But yeah, it was tough to get people to come to Wyoming.
And how were the teams?
We were so-so. Competed in the, Mountain West League, or I forget what it was now. But anyhow, it was a pretty good league, but we were so-so. We were like mediocre.
Yeah. And by the way, I neglected to ask about when you were in the military. You were already separated from pitching. Did you actually participate there? Were you playing when you were on that military team, or were you coaching?
No, I was playing. In fact, I didn't finish on that. We had this hell of a team, and so they realized that. So they got us playing all over the place, And we made a lot of trips to California, and we'd play the good college baseball teams in California, and then we'd play the military teams, of course, and then, of course, local teams that wanted to play us, we'd try and set up. So we ended up, we were in California and San Francisco, and we were supposed to play the Presidio, which was the base team there. And I can still visualize this. Every morning, this guy from the Fort Presidio, the military base, would come in and he'd shake Tony Kubek up in the morning, and he'd say, "Hey, Tony, we got a game today, 11 o'clock." And Tony would say, "Hey, we had a late game last night. I don't think we're going to be able to make this game, but we'll get it later." Well, we were there for, I think, a week to 10 days playing teams all around, and we never, ever played them, which got to the proper people in the military ranks, and they said, they really punished us for not doing that. So when we got back to Fort Lewis, Washington, they limited us to a 100-mile radius of Fort Lewis as far as playing baseball. So we could only go within. We'd have probably traveled all over the country with that team, So we ended up being 52-1. And the one game, the best team we played was Seattle in the Coast League at that time. That was probably the best team we played, and they let me pitch because it was a Red Sox farm club.
Oh.
Had a 3-2 lead, 7th inning, and a guy by the name of Tommy Umflett, which is a name that not many people know, but I do, because he did play Major League ball eventually, hit a 3-run homer off me.
Oh.
And I got beat 5-3, and that's the only game we lost all year.
Oh.
But it was also the toughest team we played all year.
Right.
You know.
But you'll take that record. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I had some wins in there, too.
Isn't that something? Yeah, you remember losses so vividly in
yes.
sports, right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
What did you think when we get to the late 70s and 80s and Tony Kubek is doing the game of the week?
Yeah, I met him. I went to a game, and he was walking out, and I said, "Hey, Tony." He recognized me, knew me. In fact, a little story there, if I got time.
We do.
He liked card tricks, and I used to be able to do card tricks. In fact, I still do, but not like I used to. But he liked card tricks, and so I'd show him some card tricks, and he always wanted to know how it was done, and I would never tell him, how you never tell how you do a card trick, So before we left, when we got out, I showed him how to do a couple of these tricks, which he really liked. And he got back with the Yankees, and next thing I do is I read an article in Sporting News that said, Tony Kubek's amazing the guys in the clubhouse with his newfound card tricks. And I said, but he didn't mention my name.
Oh, no.
So that was kind of funny.
That's great.
He was a good guy. He was a really good guy.
Have you maintained your love of baseball over the years? Do you still love it as much as you ever did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure do.
And are you a Cardinal fan or a Red Sox fan or an Orioles fan?
More of a Cardinal fan than anything.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And what do you think of
Oh, gosh. Whoa, go ahead.
Just what you're watching right now?
They're doing well now, yeah.
Yeah, but just the way the game is played.
Oh, well, yeah, it's changed so much. A lot of rules that I think are not necessarily helping the game, but lowering the mound for one was, something that wasn't really needed, I don't think. And some of the base, I don't like the second base in the extra innings, putting the man on second base.
Right.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I don't like, but you got to love the game,
Yeah.
Especially if you played it.
Right.
Yeah.
Ted, how much pride now do you take with all of your kids being between 53 and 63 as we speak here? A lot of grandkids. If somebody would have told the 21-year-old Ted Tedesco, okay, in 2024, this is what your life is going to look like, what would you have thought?
I wouldn't have believed it. No, not with, 5 kids, 12 grandkids, and 5 great-grandkids. No, I just would have had a hard time understanding how that could have happened.
And obviously, a big part of that is Sarah Sue. Describe Sarah Sue to us.
Oh, wow. She's the backbone of the family, without a doubt. Yes. Keeps us all together, does all kinds of special things for holidays and birthdays and all those kind of things. So, yeah, I'd be lost without her, that's for sure. Right, Randy?
What sort of things? And I know that some of your favorite things are birthday and holiday get-togethers for your family. What makes it so special?
Well, because we are able to get all of the family involved, not just our immediate family with the kids, but all the grandkids and even the great-grandkids, get them all together through the new phone technology, you
right.
know. Get them all together,
FaceTime.
especially on birthdays. We get them all together. We have in our family of 7, my 5 kids and my wife and I, we have 5 birthdays in 1 week in January.
Oh, wow.
5 birthdays all in 1 week. And then we have a whole bunch of other January birthdays in the family, outlying family. So we have a big birthday bash in January.
That's fantastic.
That's where we get everybody on the phones and, you know.
Is it? I hope it's like a week or two after New Year's, right? Is it?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah. We usually have it around the middle. My birthday's the 14th, so we usually have it right around the 14th.
That's great. I want you to tell us, because I want to touch on Sarah Sue here. What in your mind's eye do you see when I mention the day you got married? In 1960, by the way.
Right, 1960. Well, we didn't have a lot of money to have a real extravagant ceremony or reception, I guess I should say. So we got married in the Catholic Church, big church in Cathedral in Belleville. And we had a small reception at her parents' house. And of course, we left the next day for spring training, So it was a pretty simple ceremony, to be honest with you. And I remember sitting at the altar with the priest and shaking like a leaf. She was holding on to me. She'll remember that.
She was not the nervous one. Even at that point, she was the rock, right?
Exactly. And like I say, then we went with a baseball career for 5 years, and she enjoyed that a lot, And then she herself got somewhat of a business education and became a publisher of the legal newspaper here in St. Louis. The what? Daily Record.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Daily Record. She was a publisher of the Daily Record for a number of years. And just worked her way into that job. She really did, it was really something for her to do that.
That's fantastic. And did she do that after the kids were born, or was that something that she was doing while you were building and raising a family?
She didn't really start to get into that until he was in school.
Okay.
So
because I was going to ask about the difficulty, and that's one thing that you kind of see as a member of the sports media, but unless you're in it, and we only see a part of it, but when you're a pro athlete and have kids, the wife is indeed the rock, right? She has to handle everything. If you get moved to a different team during the season, who's the one that has to pick up everything in the old city and move it to the new city and make sure that the kids are going to school? There's a lot of things that the wife has to handle, right?
You got that right, and she did a lot of that, yeah.
So, what do you remember any specific instance, one or two, where she had to do things like that?
Well, yeah, she couldn't go to spring training with me the second year because she was pregnant with our second daughter, and so she had to take both those girls and put them on a plane when they were only 1 year and 2 years old, and fly to where I was going to be playing ball. And then we had to get settled and the adjustment, and all of that. And she had to do that twice in my career.
So it was
a hard thing.
Well, yeah. You look back at it. Could you have? I don't know if I could have.
No,
right?
No, I couldn't have.
When you look back over the course of your life, and especially once you left the University of Illinois, when you think about the changes in the world, obviously the most recent, we've got the internet, we've got such unbelievable communication with social media and just color TV. I mean, jets. What do you think the biggest change has been in your lifetime, Ted?
Gosh, I guess I'd probably say the lack of communication between people, the personal attention that we used to do when we didn't have the phones and the whole bit. I just miss talking with somebody on the phone that I really want to talk to, and instead of texting them or whatever. That's probably the key for me.
And for those that aren't aware, among your family members, your daughter Renee and I worked at KMOX together in the early '80s in the communications industry. So that must have made you proud and make you proud now that your kids are communicators.
Definitely, yes, and they all are communicators. And yes, and she did enjoy that.
So KMOX was a powerhouse when we were there. It was one of the legendary stations in America. When she came home and said, "Hey, I got a job at KMOX," because I'm sure you listened to KMOX with all of the things. What was you and Sarah Sue's reaction when Renee got the job at KMOX?
I said, "You've got it made, my daughter. You have it made," and she didn't quite understand that, you know. And then when I found out she was working for somebody like Bob Hyland, you know, and who I didn't know at the time, of course.
Right.
I said, well, that's just got to be something that you got to really be proud of, and it was. She got her degree from Western Illinois University. That's where she went to school, which you probably knew.
And I want to give you the names, and I just want to give us a capsule. Take as much time as you want, but I want to go through each of your children and just give me your reflections, your thoughts, your pride in them. And we'll start with Renee because we'll go oldest to youngest. So tell me about Renee Tedesco.
Oh, well, you got me a little bit on the spot here. They all have their own personalities. It's one thing that continues to amaze my wife and I is that 5 kids raised in one house, raised together, you know, as a family, and all 5 have different personalities and different likes and dislikes, and it's just amazing to me how they could have all branched out to do their own thing. So rather than go into each one, all I can tell you is that Renee had her distinct skills that she used. My daughter Kim, same way. She didn't go to college, but she had skills as a stay-at-home mom, and she's a planner. My daughter Kim is a party planner. You want to have a party, she's the one to do it. My son Bob took his place with a chef. He went to chef school. He went to New York to the what they call the Culinary Institute in New York, and graduated from there. And so he pursued that, and he had his own thing. He was a little tough to raise because he was a little too active. My son Tim was more studious. Went to Illinois, got his engineering degree, and applied that to his career, which I'm really proud of. And then Randy did his own thing with going out, and we went to junior college for a little bit, and then decided to get a job, got married early, and did his own thing. So they all had their own little niche that they went. But what amazes me is they all have different personalities. And you would think that they would all be a little bit more alike.
Right, yeah.
But they're
So
not.
what would you say Renee's skill set was? We talked about the 4 younger, but what about Renee's skill set is notable to you?
A communicator, number one. She was definitely a communicator, and still is. She could take on any situation, no matter how tough it was, and make it work. Yeah.
Okay. As you mentioned, 5 kids, a 7-person family. What is your favorite or most cherished family tradition, Ted?
Favorite family tradition? Well, Christmas is probably my favorite holiday, our favorite holiday when we can get together. I got some terrific early videos. I had got an old camera that I took videos of the kids when they were younger, and Christmas has always been a big deal for us. So that's probably one thing I really cherish the most.
That's great.
Well, those Christmases with the kids when they were young,
Right.
and they grow up so fast, so fast.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, you think about the fact that you have a 63-year-old, and my kids are. I have one that is turning 30, and it feels like he was born a month ago. And I'm sure it's the same way for you. Because you just have those visions, and I know you still feel young, right? So you have these visions of your kids being young.
I just told my oldest grandson, who now has three kids, I said, boy, enjoy them while you can, while they're this age, because they're going to be gone just like that. Yeah. And I don't think realize that, but he will.
Right. What do you know about being happy? You're a happy guy. What do you know about being happy and what brings happiness that you maybe didn't know when you were starting your pro baseball career or when you were in college at Illinois?
What made me makes me happy?
What makes you happy that maybe you didn't realize at that time would make you happy?
Well, the how proud you can be of raising a family that is all doing things the right way, all successful. That's something I wouldn't have recognized when I was younger, but it became that. So I'm pretty happy about that.
And I would think that, especially because you were an athlete, and you were so focused. I was a young broadcaster. I was focused on becoming a broadcaster. When you're 20, you think, okay, this is everything. This is being a baseball player for you. Was that going to be everything when you were a 20-year-old?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. I envisioned maybe having a major league career, and you had to do that at that time because if you didn't, you were dead. You know, you were. Once your confidence level, I haven't really said that to you, but you know that. Once you lose that confidence, you're dead in the sports field. Yeah.
So I want to go back to your career. You have a long career at Neuter. How long were you there?
I was at Neuter from '66 to 1980, 14 years, 15 years.
And then you moved on to?
I took another job which didn't pan out. It was a mid-management layoff type thing. But I ended up managing a lodging facility in Belleville. In fact, it was right next to the Fisher's Restaurant in Belleville, which was pretty popular. And it was called the Hyatt Lodge. And I managed that for 12 years. And he sold the place. I think I mentioned that earlier. And when he sold it, I where am I going to go, you know? And luckily, I had some good contacts with the state of Illinois, and got the job with the Department of Labor as a labor conciliator.
So I would suggest that you have, when you talk about the varied skill sets of your 5 kids, you yourself have a pretty vast array of skills with all the different things that you've done. You were a teacher. You were an HR, we'll call you a liaison. Then you go manage an inn, and then you work for the Illinois department, like we're saying. Do you agree with that? Do you think you're a pretty versatile guy?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I've dabbled in a lot of careers.
What was your favorite one?
Wow. I really enjoyed teaching. Those 2 years, I really enjoyed that. The Neuter Corporation was an enjoyable job. I was a challenge. I enjoyed the challenge. The Hyatt Lodge was a whole different ballgame. One funny story, if I got a minute, would be I'm there one night doing some work with a desk clerk, and we were talking about this and changing that. And we happened to be filled up for the night, and the bride and groom walks in and had a reservation for a room, and we had no room for them. It was very embarrassing. It's probably the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me there. So I had to call around and find them a room, which they thought they had a room with us, you know, and they were very upset. Called their parents, and their parents were very upset. We got them a room somewhere else and paid for it and the whole bit. But that was the type of thing that you had to deal with a general manager of a lodging facility. But that was a whole different ballgame. That was a different type of thing. And then Department of Labor was politics. Politics, and I
didn't like that.
Wasn't crazy about the politics.
When you go back, because you're obviously a relationship guy, when you were managing the lodge, did you have relationships with other lodging people in town? Was it reasonably easy for you to find a room for that bride and groom?
Yeah, it was, because we had good connections.
Yeah, you knew people?
Knew people,
yeah. Makes a difference.
Yeah, there was a time in Belleville, back when I was in high school, probably my biggest thrill in sports, which I didn't mention, which I probably shouldn't, but I will.
Oh, we want to hear it.
Was high school. I love to play basketball. Basketball was one of my favorite sports, really, in high school. And we were the little team playing the big team. And my senior year, our little 300 all boys Catholic school playing the public school with 2,000 kids. We had a good team. They had a good team in basketball, and we took them into double overtime. I made 2 free throws in double overtime that won the game, and that was big.
Yeah.
At that time, it was probably my biggest sports thrill. In fact, it still is probably.
Well, surpassed. It's still bigger than playing pro ball, huh?
Well, it's equal.
That's great. That's great.
Equal.
So, okay, you're talking to, as we know, you're talking to your own children, but your grandchildren and great grandchildren, and they want to know about Grandpa and Grandma, great Grandpa, great Grandma. What is the most important thing that you want your grandkids and great grandkids to know about your bride?
That she's always going to be there for them, no matter what. She will listen to anything they have to say because she's also a good communicator, and she loves them. A lot of love.
Great. And if you could give them, same group of people, life advice from Grandpa and great Grandpa, what would you advise your grandkids and great grandkids?
Well, if they are going to undertake something that they really like, I would hope that they would put their all-out effort into doing that and stick with it all the way. Give it their best.
And this is for Sarah Sue, who's watching this, along with the kids and grandkids and great grandkids. What do you, Ted Tedesco, want to say? You've got the whole group now. They're all watching. What do you want to say to the group?
Well, thanks a lot, number one, for allowing me to do this, and I hope that somewhere down the line somebody gets a good feeling from it and maybe a couple smiles, and that would make me happy.
You've had an amazing run and an amazing life and so many great stories to tell. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to meet you and talk to you and learn about you, Ted. Thank you.
Likewise, Gary. Real pleasure to do this with you.
Appreciate it. That is SoundStory with Ted Tedesco. I'm Randy Karraker. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoyed it.